What's up folks, CrossFlux here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. Today we'll be looking at the next deck that I'll be bringing to the Sparkman Yugitube Tourney. This round 2 match will be against none other than Temple of the Black Lotus. Oh man, he's got a name based on Magic the Gathering, so I must be in trouble. In all seriousness though, I might have to supercharge my strategy. What better archetype to use for that than the Batteryman? Once again, I'm not covering a meta strategy, instead opting to use one of my personal favorites. Let's see how they stack up, shall we? First things first, for those who are unaware, the Batterymen are a bit gimmicky. They focus on swarming the field and OTKing their opponent. In that sense, they're a bit of a one-trick pony. If I can't get the OTK off, then I'm most likely not winning the game. Regardless, let's see how they go about accomplishing this. Let's start with our Batteryman cards first. I run 3 copies of 9V, one of the best of the bunch. On summon, he searches any other Batteryman monster, regardless of level. He also becomes 2000 attack for the turn, assuming the effect goes off without a hitch, which is pretty sizable for a 4-star monster. The downside is that he pops himself during my own end phase, so either I need to end the game or use him as material for something before I end my turn in order to get the most out of him. Another 3 of is the newest Batteryman support card, Solar. With this guy, we're going green. Like with 9V, he too has an on-summon effect. Instead of searching for a Batteryman, he mills out any Thunder monster. A Foolish Burial on legs is pretty nifty, especially since this deck needs tons of monsters in the grave as fuel for other cards. But that's not the only thing Solar does for us. His second effect is possibly even better than his first. Whenever another Thunder is summoned, I get to create a level 1 Batteryman token. It has no attack or defense, but it's a free monster that has Batteryman in its name. Very useful for other cards in the deck. That's it for our 4-star normal summonable monsters. Up next is a whole slew of tribute monsters. That's right. Tribute monsters. Up first is 3 copies of Batteryman Charger, not to be confused with Battery Charger, which we'll get to in a little bit. Batteryman Charger gets to special out another Batteryman upon summon. Once again, there's no level restriction here. I like to think of Charger as a Monarch. He's a 1 tribute monster that essentially pays for himself. But that's not all. He's also part of our win condition as he gets really big. Starting out at only 1800 attack, he gains 300 more for every Thunder monster on my field, including himself. It's rare for him to be less than 2400 attack, and not uncommon for him to be as high as 33. Following this up, we're rocking Triple Fuel Cell. Although he's also a tribute monster, he is graced with a way to circumvent this by being able to special summon himself. As long as I have at least 2 batteries on field, I can drop him for free. An additional free 2100 attack points is good for securing our OTK, but thankfully that's not all he does. By tributing a Batteryman, he can bounce any card on the field. It would be really great if this were a quick effect, but he is an older card, so what can you do? Although being an older card does occasionally have its upsides. Speaking of which, none of his effects are hard once per turns, so the more copies you have, the more value you can get. I should mention that the best card to tribute for his effect is a Solar token, but 9V is a backup option since you're probably going to lose him during the end phase anyways. The last Batteryman monster is the biggest and potentially baddest. Industrial Strength wields a hefty 2600 attack, and, like Fuel Cell, has the ability to special summon himself. Reminiscent of the old school Chaos monsters, by banishing 2 Batterymen from the grave, you can drop him from the hand. Having 2 Batterymen in grave usually isn't a problem, but it can get pricey if you plan on dropping both copies in the same turn. That being said, I do only run the 2 copies because he can be a bit bricky, and I have more than enough ways to search him out if I really need him. This is one thirsty card though, as not only does his summon condition require fuel in the grave, he also possesses an additional effect that requires banishing Thunder monsters from the grave. What's nice though is that this effect doesn't require Batteryman specifically, just the generic Thunder type. So what does this effect do? Well, it can be tricky to use depending on the matchup, but basically I destroy both a monster and a back row. I need to be able to destroy both types of cards simultaneously, but at least it doesn't target. A clunky trick I can employ is to treat him as a discount Scrap Dragon. Say my opponent has a problematic monster that I just need to pop, but he doesn't have any back row. Then, as a last-ditch effort, I could always set a spell of my own in order to meet the destruction requirements. Alright, like I said, that was the last of the Batterymen, but we do still have plenty of other monsters to look at. As a one-off, we're running Diana the Light Spirit. She doesn't sound like it, but she is a thunder monster. She's also a decent extender, as she functions like Gigantes in Adamancipator. By banishing a singular light monster from the grave, I can drop her for free. Another extender is double copies of the retrained version of Immortal of Thunder, the Ascended of Thunder. At the steep cost of 3,000 life points, I can special summon him for free from my hand. This is perfect for getting more attack points on board in order to close out the game, or as emergency tribute fodder for Batteryman Charger. Additionally, I do gain a net positive of 2,000 life points if my opponent decides to destroy him. That could buy me a turn. This next card is a spicy tech, Yata. No, not that Yata. This Yata. Gizmek Yata, the Gleaming Vanguard, is in here at 3 copies. He's the only main deck non-thunder monster that I'll summon in this deck. He's one of the lesser known Gizmek cards, so let me explain. I can special summon Yata from my hand by tributing a normal summoned monster. After that, I can activate his ability to grant myself an additional normal summon. This card helps me to get a Charger on board if I'm forced to burn my normal summon in order to get the tribute fodder necessary. Like with Ascended of Thunder, Yata can also gain me life points, so I guess that's a bit of a secondary theme for this deck, yeah? The last cards are standard fare. Triple Ash Blossom is there for some sort of interruption, and same for Pankratops. This is an OTK strategy. As such, the deck is designed to go second, so having Pank in the main deck seems like a good fit. That's it for monsters though, so time to move on to spells. Monster Reborn is a staple that I include in almost any deck, especially graveyard-reliant ones like this one. Speaking of Monster Reborn, I get to run 4 in this deck. Battery Charger is literally just Monster Reborn, but only for Batterymen. That's fine though, as those cards are pretty much the only ones I'd care to revive anyways. Foolish Burial helps us fuel our grave. Pot of Extravagance is in here only at 2 copies because of space limitations. Batterymen have traditionally been a strategy that's never relied on their extra deck, but this particular build actually can use it, so I suppose only having 2 is a good thing on that front as well. Another extender is Instant Fusion. I guess this makes the 4th card in my deck that costs me life points, so maybe all that life gain is warranted. Anyways, at 3 copies, I'm running Monarchs Stormforth. This serves 2 purposes. 1, it helps me get a Charger onto the field, and 2, it can eliminate a threat kaiju style. I say it helps me summon Charger because he's the obvious choice, but if I really need to get rid of a monster, I could always tribute summon any of my tribute monsters, including Fuel Cell and Yata. Now, what would an OTK deck be without board wipes? Not a very good one, I'd argue. Initially, I was running 3 copies of Short Circuit, but after testing, I dropped it down to just the 1 copy. This is a house of a card, but it can be a little unwieldy to use when trying to mount a comeback. So, Short Circuit can only be activated if I have at least 3 Batterymen on field. Once activated, it's literally Raigeki and Feather Duster all in one. Usually the stipulation isn't hard to meet, but yeah, if my opponent is rocking some powerful interruptions, or I'm trying to mount a comeback from a bad position, it may be impossible to use. Thus, I've cut the 2nd and 3rd copies and replaced them with their generic counterparts, 1 Raigeki and 1 Feather Duster. Obviously, they're not as strong as Short Circuit, but the ability to activate them regardless of my situation can be crucial. A singular copy of Called By helps to smooth over any choke points this deck can suffer from. Ash Blossom is this deck's biggest fear after all. And the very last card of this deck will give away a few tech choices in the extra deck. Double or nothing. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at this extra deck since I've already hinted as what's in here. Up first, we have Triple Utopia Double. There aren't many level 4 monsters in this deck, but our bread and butter plays usually wind up with 9V and Solar on the board at the same time. Utopia Double is a card I've never really messed with, since I never watched the Zexal anime, and the Xyz era was when I initially fell out of Yu-Gi-Oh! But he seems like a good fit, since this deck is focused on OTKing, and if there's anything Double's good at, it's OTKing. Obviously, I'm running triple of the original Utopia to make the Double or Nothing play live. Since we are using Extravagance, I'm running 3 of each of these guys to make sure they're always available. Kaminari Attack is the instant fusion target. Summer Summoner is a mouthful of a name. Also, that design is pretty gross. Give me my waifus instead, please and thank you. In all seriousness though, this card is only alright. He can revive a Thunder from grave at the cost of a card in hand, but only during my opponent's turn. Since this revive will most likely occur during a chain, trying to abuse our once per turn summon effects of 9V and Solar usually miss their timing, so I only try to make this guy if I can't OTK my opponent. Another Link monster is Hip Hosh Mosh Pit. I only run 2 copies because I have another card to use for my 15th slot, but I digress. Batterymen are capable of spamming a ton of monsters on board, but it's not often I'd have enough cards on board to warrant turning 2 of them into this guy. If the situation arises where I need a little more attack points to beat over a monster, he's an option. Plus the floating effect is good. Alright, this last slot is for Utopia Lightning. I don't know man, it's not like I have a lot of good options. I thought about generic rank 5 Xyz monsters like Tiras or Adrius, since Charger is a common monster on board, but I just feel like the singular copy of Lightning would serve as a better rank up target off of my other Utopia cards in case I'm unable to pull off a Double or Nothing OTK. Lastly, let's quickly talk about the side deck before going into a couple of example plays and talking about the overall strengths and weaknesses of the deck. As usual, my side deck is probably bad, since I don't use them often. Triple Dark Ruler is there for breaking nasty boards. If I can drop this and follow it up with a board wipe, it could be quite devastating. Speaking of board wipes, Sphere Mode and Gamma Seal can deal with nasty stuff. I imagine I'd side out the Stormforths for some of these cards if I feel the need to. Impermanence and Judgment are there for solidifying my winning position against slower decks. The last slots are random stun card that I doubt I'll use, but like I said, I don't really know what to put in the side deck anyways, so here they are. Sekka, Ryo, Mustang, and Lightning Rod all put a damper on the game state, which could buy me some time, but could equally screw me over as well, so yeah. Alright, something I didn't do in the previous video going over the Medolces was talking about power plays. So I'll probably post an addendum video for that strategy as well, but for now, what does a standard turn in this Batteryman deck look like? Well, these guys can be kind of bricky, not gonna lie, but ideally you'd want to start with either Solar or 9V. For the sake of argument, let's go with Solar. On summon, he'll attempt to mill out a 9V. This is good for baiting out an Ash or something. We run 4 revival cards, so hopefully one of them will also be in my opening hand. Let's use a Battery Charger and revive the 9V, assuming it wasn't Ashed. On the summon of 9V, I'll now get a search and generate a token from Solar. At this point, I can grab Fuel Cell, since we have 3 Batterymen on board. Drop the Fuel Cell and tribute the token to bounce a back row or something like that. This is still only 5600 attack on board though, so if I need to, I can go to Double or Nothing to beat over my opponent. If that's not an option, then I guess I'll just have to play things a little safe, building up the grave. If I ever get a combination of a board wipe and a bunch of attack points, then I'm probably just going to go for game. This is a very all-in deck. If my OTK fails, I've definitely lost, so I'm not going to blow my opportunity. I need to be smart, and I need to be observant. Hopefully, I pull through here and create a win streak. I am gambling a bit by going with a more inconsistent strategy like this, but as I said, I've always enjoyed Batteryman, and I'm in this tournament for the fun of it, and for meeting the new people. That being said, I'm coming for you, Temple of the Black Lotus. Good luck to you, and have fun. And of course for everyone, remember to have a blessed day.